Welcome back. It is so great to have you sitting down with us today.
Really great to be here.
Yeah, and if you're joining us for the first time, or if you're a longtime listener, you basically know the drill by now. We take a stack of sources, things like articles, research papers, production notes, and we distill them down.
Right, getting right to the most essential insights.
Exactly. It's your shortcut to being the most well-informed person in the room. And today we have a deep dive that looks at a very specific milestone in modern television.
It's something that might surprise anyone who doesn't closely track the animation industry.
Oh, for sure. Because if we were drafting the perfect Apple Podcast title and description for this deep dive, the SEO keywords would be totally stacked. We're talking LGBTQ representation in cartoons, animated queer characters, and kids' TV milestones.
And we so often look to prestige adult dramas for structural shifts in how stories are told.
But some of the most profound narrative work actually happens in spaces designed for younger audiences.
It really does.
So our mission today, we are looking at how an 11-minute children's cartoon managed to quietly yet really profoundly shift the landscape of television representation.
Right.
Our source material is a comprehensive dive into a 2017 episode of the Nickelodeon animated series, The Loud House, and the episode is titled L is for Love.
Being the 75th overall episode of the show, it serves as a study in how media can tackle complex, meaningful topics without losing its inherent sense of fun.
Yeah.
Or, talking down to its audience. The structure of the episode is incredibly tight. It plays out almost like a classic whodunit mystery.
But with significant emotional stakes for the characters involved. Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the premise, because the setup for L is for Love establishes the mystery immediately.
It really does.
For context, for those who haven't seen it, The Loud House centers on a family with 11 siblings, and the logistical hook of this family is that every single one of their first names starts with the letter L.
Which, you've got Lincoln, Luna, Luann, Lynn, Lisa, Lucy, the list just goes on.
11 of them.
Right. And from a pure screenwriting perspective, managing an ensemble of 11 main characters in an 11-minute runtime is already a structural tightrope.
Oh, absolutely.
You literally have seconds, not minutes, to establish character motivations.
So the inciting incident kicks off when the siblings find an anonymous love letter in the mail, and it's addressed simply to L Loud.
Because there are 11 of them, the mystery is completely wide open.
Yeah, it could be for literally any of them. The sender just signs off as your secret admirer.
So the narrative structure has to systematically narrow down these 11 suspects quickly. And Lucy, one of the sisters, suggests that since the admirer is clearly shy, all the siblings should send a signal out to their respective crushes to coax them out.
So they all send out their signals, and a second love letter arrives. And this one contains a crucial clue. It says the intended recipient has brown hair.
Which is huge. That instantly slims down the suspect list.
Right.
Out of the 11 siblings, only 4 are brunettes. You got Luna, Luan, Lynn, and Lisa.
So the writers have moved the narrative from this massive ensemble piece to a very focused quartet.
Exactly. And then Lucy advises the remaining 4 to step it up, give a physical token of affection to their crushes. They follow through, and the third and final love letter arrives.
The smoking gun.
The smoking gun, yes.
Yeah.
The secret admirer mentions they are deeply attracted to the recipient's love for British culture.
And anyone familiar with the character dynamics of the show knows that points an arrow directly at one specific sibling.
Straight to Luna Loud.
Yeah. Luna is the family's resident Anglophile, meaning she is completely obsessed with British rock and roll culture, the aesthetics, the music, all of it. So the mystery seems totally solved.
Done and dusted.
The letter tells the recipient to meet up at a local British restaurant, and I just have to call out the name of this restaurant.
Oh, please do.
It's called Bangers and Mosh.
It's so good.
Which is an incredible pun for a music-loving character, though, maybe not the most traditionally romantic spot for a first date.
Well, it adds a great layer of visual humor to the scene. So the siblings all head to Bangers and Mosh to support Luna. She's bracing herself to meet her crush, someone she is referred to as Sam.
But here is where the writers completely pull the rug out from under the audience.
Yeah, they really do.
They get to the restaurant, they are scanning the room for Sam, and instead they discover that the letters weren't for Luna at all. They weren't for any of the kids. The letters were actually from their mom, Rita, to their dad, Lynn Sr. They were celebrating the 20th anniversary of their first date by recreating the exact way Rita originally asked him out.
What's fascinating here is the psychological pivot the writers execute in this exact moment.
Yeah.
The conventional narrative expectation is that Luna would be devastated.
Right.
She thought she had a secret admirer, she built up the courage to meet them, and the reality falls flat.
Right, it's a huge letdown.
But instead, the episode uses this misdirection to fuel her internal character development. Seeing her mother's grand, romantic gesture, actually witnessing the vulnerability and the bravery it took to send those letters 20 years ago, it provides Luna with the exact courage she's been lacking.
She realizes she doesn't need to wait around to be chosen by a letter. She can take the initiative herself.
Exactly.
She's been too shy this whole time to express her feelings to Sam. But seeing her parents' vulnerability inspires her to take a risk, so she advises her siblings to do the same, and the next day, she slips a love letter of her own into Sam's locker.
And that leads to the final, carefully guarded twist of the episode. Remember, the audience has been hearing the name Sam throughout the entire runtime.
Yeah, but we haven't seen them. When we finally see Sam receive the letter at the lockers, Sam is revealed to be Luna's blonde female bandmate.
Right.
Sam reads the letter, smiles, and accepts it. And the episode just ends with Luna looking incredibly proud and validated. It's this quiet, understated moment that completely shifts the gravity of the whole episode.
And pulling off a twist like that, where you hide a character's gender until the final frames of the episode without the audience feeling cheated, that takes some serious architectural work behind the scenes.
For sure. Let's look at how they actually crafted that reveal.
Yeah.
According to the production notes, Michael Rubiner, who was a story editor at the time and later became the showrunner, he had a very practical perspective on this storyline.
You did.
He pointed out that in a family with 10 girls, it felt entirely natural to explore one of them being part of the LGBTQ community. It wasn't shoehorned in for shock value. It was just statistically and naturally reflective of the real world.
And the execution of this fell to writer Kevin Sullivan. Sullivan had previously written an episode called Overnight Success, which actually introduced the series' first LGBTQ couple, Howard and Harold McBride.
Oh, right.
But for Luna's story, Sullivan and the production team laid out 3 strict principles to ensure the reveal of Sam's gender hit the exact right emotional notes.
So the first rule was foundational. They had to give the crush a gender-neutral name. According to the development history, in early drafts of the script, the character was actually going to be named Max, but they eventually settled on Sam.
Which is incredibly smart.
Mm-hmm.
Using a gender-neutral name is a highly effective tool for dismantling implicit audience biases.
Because we just fill in the blanks ourselves.
Exactly.
Right.
When a script uses a name like Sam, it allows the audience to project their own default assumptions onto the character. The script never lies to the viewer. It simply lets the viewer trick themselves based on their own ingrained societal expectations.
Wow, yeah. And then the second principle was the use of a visual decoy. The animators intentionally included a male musician, who we later find out is named Sully, in every single shot featuring Sam.
Yes.
Wait, so they literally planted a fake crush in the background of every shot. Did the network have any notes on them actively misdirecting the audience like that?
Well, networks can sometimes be skittish about deceiving the audience, but in this case, it was entirely about protecting the narrative payoff. By manipulating the visual framing, literally placing a male musician right next to Sam whenever the band is shown, the animators control the audience's eye.
Right.
The viewer naturally assumes that must be the Sam that Luna is pining for.
Right.
It actively hides the surprise without ever breaking the internal logic of the scene.
That is so clever. Then there is the third rule, which I think carries the most emotional weight for the show. Whenever Luna mentions Sam to her family, the family knows Sam is a girl, and they have absolutely zero issue with it.
It changes everything.
Sure.
Removing the threat of familial rejection changes the entire narrative genre of the episode.
Yeah, it's not a trauma story.
Exactly. The tension isn't about Luna fearing being ostracized by her family because of her sexuality. The tension is purely standard, universal teenage crush anxiety. Will this person like me back?
Right.
The family's total acceptance is baked into the premise, which allows the story to focus on the romance rather than the trauma.
There was also an interesting language constraint they had to navigate, though. Nickelodeon didn't explicitly ban Sullivan from using the word lesbian or bisexual in the script. However, Sullivan noted that because of how young the audience for The Loud House skews, they generally steered clear of highly specific terminology.
And that makes sense. When writing for young children, navigating complex identity labels requires a really delicate touch. The primary goal of the narrative at that age level is emotional resonance and empathy, not necessarily building a vocabulary of sociopolitical terms.
And Sullivan actually viewed this constraint as a massive creative positive.
Right.
He stated that the joy of the episode was that it wasn't a heavy, dramatic coming out episode.
No.
There was no grand sit-down intervention where she had to declare her identity to the room. The entire family already knew and accepted her. It was simply a story about a girl with a crush.
Just a normal crush.
Yeah. Sullivan has even mentioned that the ending of this episode remains his favorite moment from any series he has ever worked on.
Which highlights how restrictions in the creative process can force a more elegant solution. By not formatting it as a very special episode designed to teach a moral lesson, they normalize the experience entirely.
And the audience clearly connected with that approach. The episode brought in 1.89 million viewers during its initial premiere, which was a notable uptick from the previous episode, Potty Mouth.
But the conversation certainly didn't stop when the credits rolled. The ambiguity we just discussed, the deliberate lack of specific labels in the script, it sparked a significant discussion among the fan base.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Almost immediately after the episode aired, a huge debate erupted online. Fans were trying to pinpoint Luna's exact label. Was she a lesbian or was she bisexual?
And fans are incredibly detail-oriented. They brought receipts to back up their arguments.
Oh, always.
They pointed back to an older episode from the first season called Study Muffin. In that specific episode, Luna was clearly depicted as being attracted to a young man named Hugh, who was serving as a tutor. So you had one camp pointing to Study Muffin, arguing she's bisexual, and another camp looking at the narrative focus of L is for love, arguing she's a lesbian.
It just shows how deeply invested the audience becomes in the specific identity of characters they relate to. And Kevin Sullivan actually waded into this debate later on. He implied that Luna was initially conceived in the writer's room as a lesbian. However, he intentionally refused to push specific LGBTQ terminology into the dialogue or definitively settle the debate publicly.
His reasoning speaks to the philosophical difference between defining a character and letting them exist as a broader mirror for the audience.
Yeah.
Many young people watching the show are in the process of questioning their own identities. By leaving Luna without a rigid, explicit label in the text of the show, she becomes a comfort to a wider range of viewers.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right. Bisexual viewers can see their experiences reflected in her, lesbian viewers can claim her journey, and viewers who are simply questioning can relate to her anxiety and her ultimate triumph.
It's the difference between building a fence around a character's identity and leaving the gate open for the audience to walk through.
That's a great way to put it.
Many viewers have ultimately chosen to reject definitively labeling her at all, just accepting that Luna simply likes who she likes.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, that deliberate choice to prioritize human connection over categorical labels is exactly what made television critics analyze this 11-minute cartoon so closely. The cultural footprint of this episode is staggering when you evaluate the landscape of children's media in 2017.
Reviewers who are themselves part of the queer community, like Valerie Ann and Heather Hogan from the publication Autostraddle, they had really high praise for the episode.
They did.
They specifically commended the casual, normalized depiction of a same-sex crush. Hogan even ranked it among the top 30 best episodes of animated programs dealing with LGBTQ themes across the entire history of the medium.
Which is huge. And understanding why it stood out requires looking at what came before it. Alex Bonilla, from Overly Animated, provided a fantastic analysis on this. He broke down how this 15-year-old character's story basically shattered the established molds for LGBTQ representation in kids' shows.
Up until this point, representation in children's animation usually fell into one of three distinct buckets. So bucket one, they were relegated to background characters, or the supporting cast.
Right.
The Loud House actually utilized this bucket first with the McBride parents. You also saw it with characters like EJ and Sue in the show Clarence. They were present, their identities were clear, but they were infrequently occurring and not driving the main plot.
Then bucket two is what we might call the slow burn.
Okay.
The relationship is built up over years of subtext, often only explicitly confirmed in the final moments of the series finale. The quintessential example here is Korra and Asami in The Legend of Korra.
Right, Korrasami.
Exactly. While groundbreaking for its time, that pacing was often the result of network reluctance. Executives were testing the waters, unsure of the backlash, so the representation had to be agonizingly drawn out until the show was literally ending.
And then you have bucket 3, which is hiding the representation behind sci-fi, fantasy, or non-human elements.
Yes.
Shows like Steven Universe did phenomenal, emotionally complex work with characters like Pearl, Ruby, and Sapphire, who are in explicit same-sex relationships. But crucially, they are alien gems. They aren't human.
And framing queer relationships through non-human metaphors has historically been a way to make the concepts palatable to skittish executives.
Okay.
Or to bypass international syndication censors.
Oh, sure.
It provides a layer of plausible deniability.
But looking at Luna and Sam, they shatter all 3 of those typical molds. They are human, they are young, Luna is 15 years old, and they are front and center in the main cast of a flagship Nickelodeon show.
It wasn't hidden in the background, it wasn't an alien metaphor requiring decoding, and it didn't take 5 seasons of subtext to acknowledge.
No.
It was presented plainly, treated with the exact same narrative, weight, and respect as any other teenage crush on the network.
And the industry recognized that structural achievement. This episode, alongside the broader inclusion of the McBride parents, helps The Loud House earn a nomination at the 29th GLA Media Awards.
Which is fantastic.
A GLA nomination is a massive industry acknowledgement for fair, accurate, and inclusive representation. Seeing a children's cartoon recognized in those spaces shows how much the medium was maturing.
That nomination is a testament to the idea that representation doesn't always have to be anchored in trauma or societal struggle. Showing queer joy and simple, everyday acceptance can be a radical narrative choice in its own right.
So what does this all mean? When we review the production history, the strategic misdirection, and the cultural landscape of the time, we see a story about a cartoon that decided to treat its young audience with immense intellectual respect.
We really do.
We often assume that to change a culture, we need huge, dramatic storylines. We expect shouting matches, tears, and heavy-handed morality lessons.
Right.
But Ellis for Love demonstrates that sometimes the most profound way to shift the culture is simply to present something new as entirely unremarkably normal. It forces you to consider how the media you consume shapes your own baseline understanding of what normal actually looks like.
This raises an important question, and it's a vital framework for anyone listening who wants to be a sharper consumer of media. Critical thinking isn't just about absorbing what happens on the screen.
Yeah.
It requires looking past the surface plot to ask how and why the narrative was constructed by the creators. Why did they use a visual decoy in the framing? Why did the writer choose to withhold a specific label from the dialogue?
Exactly.
When you start asking those questions, you expose the invisible architecture of storytelling. You start to understand the incredible care, psychology, and intention that goes into making an 11-minute cartoon look completely effortless.
The invisible architecture. I want to leave you with one final thought today that builds on everything we've just unpacked. We've talked about how this show normalized a same-sex crush for a young audience without relying on the trauma of coming out or the fear of rejection. In a world obsessed with putting everything into a perfectly labeled box, how does the absence of a specific label, like Luna's, actually provide more freedom for a character and a viewer to just be themselves?
It really rephrases what we consider to be mature storytelling.
It absolutely does. Thank you so much for joining us on this custom-tailored deep dive. We hope you pulled out some valuable insights today, and we leave you with that lingering question to explore on your own. Keep questioning the media you consume, keep learning, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.